and welcome to Right for America Issues that Unite, Don't Ignite. I am your host, Cindy Gross, also known as the Jewess Patriot, but you don't have to be Jewish to be a part of our show because we all are in this together for common sense values. I'm going to start my show like I do every week with my opening pearls of wisdom because my Jewish name is Diesel Peril, which means sweet pearl. I'm going to talk about A Tale of Two Deaths this week. I am not going to go into a long discussion about Charlie Kirk because we all are hearing it and talking about it. I was sitting in the Republican Capitol Hill Club with elected officials and leaders of our community, literally watching the breaking news. And if that wasn't a surreal moment, I don't know what is. I met Charlie Kirk and I sat with him and Candace Owens at the time at the embassy opening, VIP at the Jerusalem embassy opening. And everybody was talking about him, about what a superstar he was becoming. I later had dinner with him at the Trump Hotel in 2018. It was a small group of us talking about how we could build the momentum for 2020 and get more young people involved because he was getting a lot of response from college students that they were so unhappy with the way the country was turning. And only recently, Charlie was supposed to be a guest and receive an award at a fundraiser gala I am involved with in November. And the big discussion we have this week is whether or not we're going to do it posthumously or we are going to wait and do something else later in the year. Then again, this morning, we woke up to the news of the death of Robert Redford. Why am I talking about that? Because all my friends who are conservative and Republicans are not going on social media attacking the life of Robert Redford. They're remembering him. He was an icon for so many generations. The people in the 70s, of course, we know all the great movies, his partnering with Jane Fonda and Paul Newman, his Oscar-winning director role in 1980 for Ordinary People. My favorite Robert Redford movie came a little later, and a whole new generation got to know him through the songs of Celine Dion. And that was Up Close and Personal, because to me, that was probably the last movie that was about real journalism, because what we have today is not real journalism. He played a journalist who was willing to sacrifice everything to get the story. But the two movies I want all of you to go back and look at now are two of his earlier movies in the 70s, The Candidate and All the President's Men. And why do I say it? First watch All the President's Men and then watch The Candidate. Because in The Candidate, he played a character that was quite progressive and liberal, and he was behind, and his team built him up so that he could win. And when he finally wins, he says at the end of the movie, "What am I supposed to do now?" And absolutely no one gives him an answer, and everyone abandons him. And to me, that is what is going on with the Democratic Party and people like Mondani. And you hear it now in the excerpts coming out of the book from Kamala Harris. And it's really a lesson. What goes around comes around. The press, the fake media, the entertainment industry wants you to have a narrative of what law, Constitution, America First means. But we are smarter than that. Rest in peace, Robert Redford, for such incredible work. And we will never forget you, Hubble. And with that, I see my guest shaking his head, so he totally agreed probably with what I said about The Candidate. Because he is a real journalist, and he could probably appreciate why I loved Up Close and Personal, besides the fact I knew a couple of the actors in it. And I heard a lot of great stories about Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert Redford. And joining us now is a friend of mine, a friend of yours. You watch him every week on Newsmax. Tom Basile is no stranger to politics. He's been an award winning author, a columnist. You know his show, America Right Now, as opposed to my show, Right for America. For over 20 years, he's been involved in political strategy. He is the former director of communications for the U.S. Department of the EPA, and he is at the forefront of every single issue because he is a true journalist. He actually investigates the work and is willing to take the risk. And I'm so happy I could call him friend. Tom, thank you so much for joining us at Right for America.
Cindy, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much. And it's been a rough week for a lot of folks. And your introduction was very gracious of you. Look, I just let's all kind of try to be like Charlie, right? Charlie, was very well researched, and he didn't care about the feelings. He cared about facts. He cared about make the history. He cared about principle, and that's really what we're charged with doing, and how we should all behave when we're all part of this national dialogue about the future of this country.
So, obviously, the political violence in the US is getting out of hand. And it's not really, I hate to say, it's not really from the Republican side. I mean, just the day before, look what happened in North Carolina. It's a discussion that's not even, talked about anymore, how a beautiful girl was stabbed and how people sat on a train and watched it and did nothing.
Yeah.
Uh, how every single day the numbers in cities all across the country, red and blue, whether or not it's robberies, rapes. I mean, they could, in New York, they keep saying, oh, murder went down, but rapes are up 40%.
Yeah.
People are scared to walk in the cities. Even in red states, they're afraid to go out late at night. They're afraid to take public transportation. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, look, it is amazing to me, on one sense, because I look at all of these folks not as crime rates or statistics, but as people. These are lives that are forever changed or even ended by these crimes, and no level of it should be acceptable. And yet you have Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker saying, hey, there were 2,000 shootings, 2,000 people shot in Chicago in 2024, but really, we're okay. We've got it all under control. And it's just so staggering that when you look at the loss of life all across the country, primarily in these deep blue cities, and the vast majority of this violence in these cities is happening in low income and minority populations. They are the ones who feel it first. They're the ones who feel it hardest. And yet you have these Democrat elected officials who are saying, yeah, everything's fine. We're okay. And you have these district attorneys who are Democrats who they want to proceed with the cashless bail, and they want to close down prisons in New York City. Mandami is talking about spending $1 billion not on policing but on social workers, and somehow this is going to be what solves the problem. And I think that a lot of people, particularly in the Black and Latino community, I think they're starting to come to the realization that the
They
folks
didn't
who
vote.
want safer streets
Mhm.
are the Republicans. It's Donald Trump who is saying, hey, let's try to do something about this crime. Let's think outside the box. And if your city's not going to do it, let's work together with your governor to try to do it.
I'm going to
And I
just
think
say
that,
something about that. In
yeah,
the primary, the blacks and Hispanics did not go for Mondani. They went for Cuomo.
that's right.
And uh, the people that did go for Mondani that are privileged white liberals, and we can't figure out what is this white guilt that Black Lives Matter started that is growing that makes them feel that they have to be embarrassed and unhappy to be white and American. I just
Yeah,
don't understand it.
that's kind of all part of that CRT, that critical race theory, white fragility thing, and that started about a decade ago, really inserting itself into academia, and media, and it has had a very corrosive effect on on really the mental health and the well-being of so many people. But that's what the left wants to do, whether it's we're talking about, what this country is really all about, okay, and the promise of America, when it comes to what Israel, when it comes to gender, uh, they want to take what you think and they want to turn it upside down to create more chaos. This is a very Marxist sort of approach to how ultimately you stoke a massive revolution, and you stoke societal change and economic change that leads to greater statism in America. I mean, that's, so, and you're absolutely right, Cindy, you hit the nail on the head. When you look at the people who are protesting against Trump in DC, it's all a bunch of white liberals, many of them women, white liberal women who live in Georgetown and Tenleytown and $1 million homes. It's not people who live in Southeast. It's not the people who are facing the murder and the crime that hangs over their neighborhoods every single day. But again, I think that people are starting to wake up to it. I'm very, very happy that that the president is coming to, that the president and Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, are going to work together with the mayor in Memphis. Memphis is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. It has been for many years. And to try to pilot a state, federal, city partnership on law enforcement to do something about the crime in Memphis. I'm very excited about this, and I think that this could be a model for the rest of the country.
I know a lot of people looking at New York with Mondani and saying, well, this is the best thing for Republicans. I kind of disagree. I think once you have something in place, it's very, very hard to get them out. A perfect example is England. The top 10 cities in England, from London down, are all run by Muslim mayors who came in as moderate Muslims, but then actually, as they got into power, became more and more religious and started supporting Sharia law in their cities. And now those cities are going broke because the people that are taking most of the government money for food and housing are families that are practicing Sharia law and have families that are averaging 8 to 10 people. And if he's going to do that in New York, it's going to be very hard to get out. And it's going to be very hard, honestly, to win a governor's race.
Well, there are a couple of different ways to look at that in New York. And first of all, the big thing that'll happen if Mamdani wins is you will see mass resignations in the NYPD and retirements. The police force will become operationally, it will cease to function in the way that it needs to. They're also not going to be able to recruit those people. They're having a terrible time trying to recruit people into the NYPD. If you have a socialist mayor who wants to spend money on social workers, who wants to close the jails, and thinks that we're going to just put people back out on the street, you're not going to. That's a 30,000 person police force, and you're going to lose. I think you'll lose a quarter of it. I think that people will take. They'll leave their jobs, and so that's the first thing.
How about all the people that have money that are already leaving? I know people in the real estate business, the commercial real estate has been dead. The residential, anybody with money is out of here.
Right.
And not only that, in Nassau, in Westchester. It's
Th-
going to have an impact on the neighboring counties.
It is, and this is where, there are Republicans who say, well, if you have a socialist, anti-Semite, radical Islamist mayor in the city of New York, when New York starts to crater, the the money obviously leaves. It goes elsewhere. So you're going to have a serious financial. You're going to have lower tax receipts. You're going to have a serious financial crisis. But in the suburban communities may then vote Republican because they're going to be very concerned about the spillover effect of what's happening in New York on their pocketbook, their business, and their community when it comes to crime. And so I think that on a statewide basis, if the Republicans run a strong candidate, uh, and Mondami is the mayor. Kathy Hochul has endorsed him this week because she's an empty suit. I mean, she has no principles. She's basically is told what to do and she does it. This is somebody who has absolutely no scruples, and she has absolutely no ability to fight the fight that she should for the future of her own state, and she's demonstrated that over and over again. So so that could provide an opening for Republicans on a statewide basis there.
So we also have to talk about the congressional seats. You talk about
Hmm.
Nassau is, everybody knows, kind of strong GOP. Where I am, you barely see anything from the Democrats, which is
Right.
rare around New York. And actually upstate, they say the same thing in many areas. However, the quote unquote new voices of the Democrats who they are trying to target as leaders include my current Congresswoman, Laura Gillen, because she came out first and said she wasn't going to support Mandani. And today's
Yeah.
Ham Swazi said he's not
Swazi.
going
Yeah.
to. So
Look.
Nassau County,
Yeah.
despite being all GOP, their two congressional seats are Democratic.
Yeah, well, that's true. And again, this is it's up to the party to make sure that they have good candidates and well-funded candidates to run for those seats. I think a lot of it is going to be an issue of turnout. And I think that it's too early to tell how it's going to how ultimately it's going to the events of the last week, and also the Mondami race, how that is going to impact turnout. And then something that you mentioned also in your opening, Cindy, which is spot on, is these races come down to the economy in so many ways, right? Public safety is very important to people. Trump is delivering on that. He's delivering on immigration. And then also the economy. Where is this economy going to be? How financially secure do people believe they are in November of 2026? And that's going to determine turnout, and ultimately who wins these elections.
And it's great that we're all talking about Charlie Kirk and his we're memorializing him and all his accomplishments, but life does go on. And tomorrow, Vice President Vance is going to be visiting a metal facility in Michigan to discuss just that, the Trump tax cuts for the families and small businesses, and how the Republicans really have to do a much better job
Yes.
of talking about the rising cost and what's happening, and explain where the biggest rises came during the Biden administration.
Yeah.
Explain better
Yeah.
in 50 states, and to really have a national Republican committee actually put out ads on ABC, NBC, and CBS that are very general, but that target people that
Yeah.
are living paycheck to paycheck, and
Yeah.
how much the big tax bill is actually helping middle America.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, because that's exactly what this administration should be talking about. And look, Trump's a tour de force, right? He's a tour de force. He's a bull in a china shop. He has more energy at 79 than I do, and that's great because we had 4 years where we really didn't have a president and we didn't really know who it was, right? So
Absolutely.
it's all really good. The problem is that he likes to move in a very fast clip. And what you need to do when you're trying to get a message to penetrate on a national basis is you have to pick like two or three things to really, really focus on.
But he's
Crime and
acting like a one
immigration.
man show. He needs
Yeah,
the Republican National Committee to get together and make a national message that will
yeah.
resonate for incumbents, for new people. Because when I was in Washington last week, all I was hearing is the concern of the congressional seats
Yeah.
and who's going to go Rhino and who's going to go with him, knowing what's happening for
Look,
2020.
look. Here's the thing. You're right, but Trump controls the Republican National Committee, and he controls, to the other committees to some degree, and he has the most money of anybody in terms of his own political organizations and political apparatus. What JD Vance is doing tomorrow is incredibly important because it is literally the most important thing that he can be doing right now. And that goes for every single congressional Republican as well. And that's talk about the impact of the Trump tax bill on Americans. And because you're going to look at this and when you see how this impacts people who are on fixed income, who are seniors, people who who are overtime workers, people who are lower income hourly workers, um, people who are tipped workers, there is significant tax savings, even for people in the suburbs in many of these states that are very high. They pay a lot in property taxes. They're all getting a tax cut. 90% of Americans are going to get a tax cut from this bill, and in many cases, it's going to be very significant for small business owners. The ability to do the expensing up front on the investments is also going to be really, really powerful to help ensure that our businesses invest in job creation. So there's a lot of stuff in the bill. I don't know if I mentioned this to you the last time that you and I talked, but Pell Grants, things like Pell Grants, can now be used for trade schools and for vocational training, which that was in the bill. Most people probably have no idea, but you have loads of people who've got kids who are getting ready to go off to college. They're trying to decide, do I want to go into one of these indoctrination farms to get a basket weaving degree, or do I want to get to learn a trade where I'm always going to have a job and I'm going to make good money? Well, the Pell Grants can help that person now. So there is so much in there, and Republicans have done a miserable job trying to talk about it all. So I'm glad that Vance is going up there to do that, to start talking about it, and every single member of the House and Senate needs to do the same thing.
Absolutely, because it's the number one issue people are talking about, not
Affordability.
anything else. So we met at the White House at the Purple
Mhm.
Heart ceremony,
Yeah.
and that was quite an experience. I mean, I never expected my picture to go all over the world with Trump with my fascinator. We had a fascinating conversation, and you really explained something brilliant to me. And as the Jewish patriot, I really would love you to share with my audience. And that is that the Israeli government is not doing a good enough job. Like we just said about Trump, no one is perfect. But there is something that they can do, especially in light of the ultra right wing or that are like all these conspiracy theories about Israel and Mossad and killing Charlie Kirk and Jeffrey Epstein. Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister, and I must say, before we got on here, I literally was on the phone with someone in Jerusalem running to a bomb shelter because the sirens are running off, and there is going, the land offense in Gaza has started.
Right.
So it is very important and timely. What does Bibi Netanyahu have to do with his team to get a better PR campaign going on in America, especially for Christian Zionists?
Sure. Look, our relationship with Israel is a very unique and very special relationship. And Israel is not just a political jurisdiction. when we talk about defending Israel, we're talking about defending Judaism. And when we talk about defending Judaism, we are talking about defending the God of history. We are talking about defending the God of Abraham and the Old Testament. The Old Testament is the precursor to the New Testament. And the New Testament and the Old Testament together are the underpinning of Western civilization. So when the Islamic fascists attack and want to annihilate Jews, it is part of a larger strategy for them to ultimately eviscerate and destroy Christianity, and attack the underpinnings of Western society. And so when Israel is attacked, it is as if American freedom is being attacked as well. And it's very important for people to understand that that these things do not happen in a vacuum. You have pro-Palestinian groups on the left who were tied to Marxists, who were encouraged by the communist Chinese here in this country for a reason. We talked about CRT earlier. You have that message, that Marxist messaging that is being driven here in this country and throughout Europe, while Europe is dealing with an invasion of radical Islamists. All of this stuff is happening at the same time while Israel is at war, trying to protect itself. And it's so incredibly important for people to understand the linkages. And I think that the Israeli government also needs to be much, much clearer in how important it is for America, particularly the American Christian community, to appreciate what Israel is doing and how it relates to not only defending Jews and Judaism, but the American way of life and Christianity as well. It's very important that more effort be put into that, in my view. And I'm a big fan of the Prime Minister. He's the one who is standing between the annihilation of Jews on a global scale, and the ability for Jews and Christians to continue to have a presence in the Holy Land, but also the ability to blunt this Marxist movement that is much bigger than I think a lot of people want to recognize.
Well, the problem is, you just said something. CRT is not a decade old. As the person who has the longest running lawsuit, I can tell you in New York City, and who called out Randy Weingarten. I have 1,000 pages of a legal document to prove it, with all the evidence and witness testimony. This has been a very clever plan, long term, since the early 2000s. You don't even realize how it was, from the teachers' qualifications and standardized
Mm-hmm.
testing to keep them tenured, who was being tenured and how, to
Mm-hmm.
whistleblower protections, to curriculum,
Right.
to the whole system, from superintendents. It's all very carefully planned. And it's not just the teachers union, it's the supervisors unions. It's all
Oh,
the
sure.
is involved in schools. And when people start to talk about education as the business and everybody making money off of it the past 40 years, you will figure out how it's all tied together, and it's very
Yeah.
cleverly planned internationally.
It is. Well, remember, there are two things when you think about the Marxist underpinning of the American left. There are two sort of critical, sort of seminal components of that. One is you go after the schools first. And that's what they did when they started the march through the institutions here in this country. They went into the school systems first. And two, the other seminal piece of this, and this goes back to my previous point, is atheism, militant atheism. You have to discredit and eliminate all reference to Judeo-Christian values in society. And because once you relieve society from the morals and the values of both the Old and the New Testament, then you can do whatever you want. Violence is justified. Um, you are able to, you want to have 57 genders, you want to have 75, that's fine. You want to take gender dysphoria, which is a terrible mental illness that is that is being foisted upon in many cases, people. Um, that's fine. What's the matter with that? What's the matter with castrating and sterilizing children? What's the matter with aborting millions and millions of human babies, of human beings, and killing them in the name of personal rights? Um, you can pervert anything. I mean, there are people in California who are trying to pass legislation to make prostitution legal, to make they want out on the West Coast they want all drugs to be legal. They even want to soften penalties for things like sodomy.
And
So yeah,
Mamdani's going to want to do that in New York, and it's going to be against everything that the Muslims are voting in him for. So it just doesn't make any sense. But
well, politics, Cindy, as you know, makes for strange bedfellows, right? So here in our time, and this is something that we've never faced before, right? In our time, we have the radical Islamists and the communists are now friends. They won't always be friends, but for the time being, in order to kill as many Jews as possible, try to do something to blunt the potency of Christianity and attack Western civilization and America, the communists and the Islamofascists, they're working in concert.
and as we
They are.
see in
Go
the
ahead. I'm
news,
sorry.
it's 5 years exactly since the Abraham Accords yesterday, and we see now that all of a sudden enemies in the Arab world are joining together and saying, let's try to stop and end the Abraham Accords based on what's going on. So
Hmm.
you're 100% right with what you're saying.
Yeah, and of course, communist China, and I include Russia in this as well because Russia's not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. It's basically some sort of latter day form of communism, or authoritarianism. So but they're together in all of this, right, with the pro-Palestinian crowd and the Islamic extremists. They're, like I said, politics makes for strange bedfellows. So these two enemies of Judaism, Christianity, and then Western civilization, they're together now, working in concert. And I think we see a lot of that. If you scroll online, you'll see a lot of that. And some of it doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about what these two groups actually believe. But they're
Absolutely.
using each other, I think, very effectively right now.
So in other news, President Trump is heading to the UK today.
He is.
So tell us what you think is going to come out of that. And let's talk a little bit about the United Kingdom's banning of Israelis from their defense university.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Keir Starmer is scared out of his mind. Okay. And the same thing for Macron, and the same thing for the Germans. They are all scared out of their minds because they have allowed this radical Islam into their countries, and they are very frightened about the growing political and social consequences of that, and they're not quite sure how to deal with it, frankly, which is one of the reasons why they have decided that they are going to sound these anti-Israel, anti-Semitic tones by some of the things that they are doing. Um, and it's something that I hope that privately that Trump addresses, because it is for them to ban Israelis, just like in Spain, by the way,
And to say the
Uh,
NATO allies in Europe are abandoning Israelis every single
yep.
day. Israelis are being attacked. Yesterday in Greece, two Israelis were walking in Athens and were attacked on the street mid-afternoon.
Yeah, and remember, this doesn't have to do with Israel as a political jurisdiction. It has to do with Jews. This is anti-Semitic. It's not, well, I don't like Benjamin Netanyahu or his policy, or I wish they wouldn't have bombed Qatar. These folks want to annihilate Jews. And we've seen this movie before, right? And it's, and it's very disturbing. Um, and the United States, I believe, has a responsibility, an absolute responsibility, to make it very clear that that these NATO countries, who are supposed to be Western allies of Israel, uh, beg off of this course that they're on. But the Europeans, they have bigger problems. I mean, the free speech, the infringement of free speech, the infringement of freedom of religion in Europe is far worse than I think most Americans believe. And again, it could be a Muslim influence, but it also is just a left wing influence in some of these countries. The extreme censorship, banning public prayer. I mean, look, they just did it in Canada. In Quebec, they banned public prayer. This is our closest neighbor. So the left is going to push very hard, and it's very important for this country to remain very principled, and for Trump to push back as much as people don't like him when he pushes back. This is not a popularity contest. You have to stand up for American principles.
Correct.
And American
it's
values.
Civilization principles. That's what I tell people.
Mm.
And look at the people that are whose countries are thriving. Look at Argentina. What's going on there? How supportive he is of Trump and Israel. Look what's going on in Poland. I mean, and look what's happening to Poland from Russia. So
Right.
I mean, you have to really be realistic about what's going on. And people really have to, I keep telling people, get off the social media. Really learn your facts. Don't
Yeah.
just spit something out because it looks cute on an Instagram story. Really learn your facts. There is so much misinformation going around, whether or not, I mean, with Charlie or Trump or anything else, Israel, anti-Semitism. It's really, 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 really time people wake up, because if they don't, I mean, I'm 62, I'm a grandma. My kids, I fear for my grandchildren,
Yeah.
because I'm not giving them the world that my grandparents gave to me.
Yeah. Well, look, it has been, it's been less than 100 years since the Holocaust, and and they don't even teach it anymore in a lot of schools. It sort of goes back to the left's stranglehold over higher education, how those teachers are trained, the left's stranglehold over the teachers' unions in the public schools in this country, and something needs to be done about that. We don't have any intellectual diversity, and for all the talk about diversity, there's no intellectual diversity. The number of teachers and nurses and professors and doctors and school board members and school board presidents and university administrators that have been fired over the last week because they celebrated the death of a brilliant 31-year-old man who had the courage to go and have decent civil conversations about things. It really shows you just there's a significant cancer that has to be dealt with.
Which is why I did the opening I did, because let's face it, Robert Redford was not the politics of you and me. Robert Redford started the Sundance Film Festival,
yeah.
and promoted all the left environmental issues. I mean, they were with George McGovern. They were nothing with us, but he entertained us. And people seem to forget that entertainment is not government. It's not legislation and policy. It's entertainment for escape.
Right. And also government is not entertainment.
Correct.
So because, people, there are real consequences. People get the government that they deserve. It's the old saying, and Ben Franklin said, "We've given you a republic if you can keep it." Um, we've sort of turned, we have forgotten in our infotainment digital environment that we all live in, that there are real consequences when these institutions fail. There are real consequences when you drive through Manhattan and you drive past the housing projects, which are were a concept that was fundamentally racist at the beginning. Just take all the black and brown people and put them into these super block housing projects that are made out of cinder blocks with bars on the windows, and expect that they're going to achieve anything, expect that they're going to be able to get their way out of that. There are real consequences, and it impacts real lives. And the left doesn't seem to really care. And again, it doesn't shock me, because there's a nihilism that has captured the Democratic Party in this country, that they don't even know which end is up. I mean, 2 weeks ago, Cindy, the senator from Virginia, Tim Kaine, sat in a committee hearing with a straight face. Now, Virginia, by the way, that's where Thomas Jefferson lived. And compared the founding principle of this country, that our rights come from God, not from men, to the Islamic terrorists over in Iran.
That's right.
This guy was supposed to be a moderate.
And he was supposed to be vice president. You remember the short thing, Mr. Vice
Right.
President.
Right. So, I think that there's, this is a challenging time that we have not really quite faced before, because there are so many forces, both foreign and domestic, that want to disrupt the American way of life. But on the other hand, there's also tremendous opportunity. And that's what I'm trying to make people understand, as tragic as Charlie's death is. As tragic as October 7th, 2003 was and is, what is the opportunity that now comes from that?
So that's going to be my closing for you, because first of all, in 2025, people are really watching two races: New Jersey, and you mentioned Virginia. I happened to be with Winsome Sears last week. As lovely as can be. The way the media wants to make her out to be, oh my God, she is funny.
Yeah, she's great.
She's much prettier in person, and she's coming on my show, in fact. And so tell us, for 20 years, you had Empire Strategies. You've helped many candidates on all levels. You ran for Congress. What should we, as common sense people, I don't want to put an R or a D. I want common sense, because independents are going to really make the difference. And I see more and more people disgusted with their parties. I hear it every day from people.
Yeah.
We are going to change our registration to an independent.
Yeah.
What is the advice you can give our viewers, our listeners, to getting involved in 2026, and how we can save America? I know they say every election is the most important. I really do believe it, that this one is the most important, because if we don't get that House and we don't get that Senate, we are never going to have a Republican victory in our lifetime.
Well, look, I think that it's very important for people to just do what they always do. All right. Look at your family and your community, and turn off a lot of the noise. People say to me, "Oh, I really don't like Trump." Like, you don't have to like Trump. Okay. Who says you got to like the guy? You're about to get a huge tax cut. Shut up. Right. And by the way, if you don't want it because you hate Trump that much, you can feel free to pay the government more than what you owe. You're allowed to do that now too. Um, you know, think about if you're Jewish, I don't see how the heck you vote for a Democrat. I just don't. I don't see how. If you're a Bible believing Christian, with where the Democratic Party has gone, and how far left it's gone, I don't see how you vote for a Democrat. But at the end of the day, you have to make people make decisions from the inside out. How is what is going on impact me, my family, my community, my state, right? And this is one of the reasons why the tax cuts are so important to talk about, because that is, I think that people are going to look at that tax bill next April and they're going to say, yeah, well, you know what, I got an extra couple of grand back, that I can use to pay down my credit card debt, or that I can use to put into a home project, or that I can put into savings. They're going to look at those $1,000 funded savings accounts to help deal with the savings crisis that the president put into the bill, for kids. That's a very big deal. You see that. I think people were very concerned, even though they probably didn't tell the pollsters about illegal immigration, about the 11 million people, and all of the drugs, and all of the crime and the criminals that were allowed to come into this country. The president is delivering on that promise, and it's extraordinary. The drug overdose deaths are down in America because Donald Trump is doing something about the flow of drugs, and he's hitting these cartels hard. I think Americans like that. That also has a direct impact on crime and safety, public safety in their communities. And let me tell you something, Cindy, the Democrats are in freak out mode right now. If he goes into Memphis, Washington, D.C., and St. Louis and brings down the violent crime rate in Black and Latino neighborhoods, those folks, they're coming out to vote. And I don't think they're going to vote Democrat.
I think he's getting more Black women now. I have every single day more and more Black women reaching out to me because the projects I'm working on. I can tell you the Black men were coming. They came out stronger and stronger. I would like to see more of the Jewish vote come out. I don't understand how anybody could think about voting Democrat down ballot, because nobody in Congress is actually censoring or punishing the squad, and they haven't for years. I know you promised me 25 minutes. You've gave me over 45. I'm going to close it up.
Okay.
Give us your final thoughts, and also where our audience could reach out to you.
Sure. I'm at tombasili.com, on X, at Tom_Basili. You can watch me on America Right Now, which is 9 a.m. Eastern Time, every Saturday, and I do a whole bunch of other stuff for Newsmax Television. Look, like I started off by saying, it's been a rough couple of weeks. Don't ask why this is happening. Ask what you can do about it. That's the most important thing. And everybody get engaged in having this conversation about American values and about protecting what makes this country great. And let's be constructive, and not sink to the level of the people who want to change the American way of life. Because those are the people who are, who killed our friend Charlie last week, and who are going after our schools, and who have taken over our media. And so, but ask not why, but what. I think that's the most important thing.
That's a great way to end this. You're always welcome back. I look forward to working with you, seeing you. And I'm so proud to have a Christian Zionist have such a strong voice. And please join us anytime. Thank you so much.
Cindy. Thank you, Cindy.
And with that, I'm going to do my closing pearls of wisdom. And I am actually going, since I started with Hollywood, I'm going to end with Hollywood. I was reminded this morning of my favorite moment at the Academy Awards, and that was by the greatest screenwriter of all time, Patty Chayefsky. When Vanessa Redgrave won her Oscar, and she used her platform to support Palestinians, he got up and he said, a simple thank you would have sufficed. And he got a standing ovation. And that could have happened at the Emmy Awards. As a Jewish woman, I have to speak out. I happen to watch Hacks. It's one of my favorite shows, but I cannot watch HBO anymore. And I'm going to be writing an article about what's going on at HBO because it's not just Hacks, it's the other shows as well. When Hannah Einbinder got up and said, F ICE, first of all, I am telling Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, and everybody else, Tom Holman, that kind of talk is what brings about violence. And these people, she's bisexual, she's transgender, not transgender, she's bisexual. She talks about that, and she talks about being an American Jewish woman. She was wearing a strapless dress or a short, basically her arms were all open. And the Palestinian newspapers the next day actually showed her picture and they had to block her out. She doesn't understand that she's the first person that, if she was in Germany, would have been leading the line to be gassed and burned in Auschwitz, the same way my family members were. She doesn't understand what she's even talking about. Javier Bardem, I'm sorry, I know he won an Oscar, and I used to think he was great, but I can't remember the last time he or his wife, Penelope Cruz, were ever in a movie that made money. I have to tell you that I watch a little bit of it, the clips and everything. People tell me they don't know the shows. I don't know most of the shows. Most of the people that they say are Jewish really aren't Jewish. And Hollywood is not owned by Jews anymore. But Hollywood was started by Jews who came to America to escape death and anti-Semitism and opened the doors for all these minority groups when no one else wanted to give them a chance. It was a Jewish man, David Selznick, who hired Hattie McDaniel and made sure and lobbied for her to win an Oscar. It was Jewish people who helped Asians and gays and people from all different backgrounds build movies and make money. So I don't understand where these people think they could actually lead to world peace with their stupidity. They are wearing a red pin that actually stands for the blood of 2 murdered Israelis that were bloody sacrifice. And the hands, you probably have seen the picture, are the terrorists showing pride in murdering 2 Jews in their 20s for no reason other than being Jewish. So I close and tell you, a simple thank you would have sufficed. But to the entertainment world, here's a tip. You're not winning. All of us who have streaming stations, streaming lines, and we keep paying for them, keep saying, what are we watching? There is nothing to watch. And many people are actually discontinuing their memberships, and they're not going to the movies. They're not going to Broadway theaters. So your entertainment is really nothing more than garbage. And with that, the show is over. This is Cindy Gross, the Jewess Patriot. Right for America will be back. Not next week. We'll have a special show next week, but I will have a special show on September 30th. You're not going to want to miss. It's a secret, but I'll just give you a little hint. It's something that you've been requesting and hasn't been on until now. Have a happy and healthy New Year to my Jewish friends. Shana Tova. May you all be sealed in the book of life.